Let's go.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us today. You have reached successfully the Catalyst Leadership Growth Series. As many of you know, we started this virtual effort because of COVID-19. And I think, looking at where that has put us, we're in an unprecedented time with many leadership challenges that some never thought they would see. We're in uncharted territory, and some people are doing extremely well and some are struggling. And we wanted to be able to reach out or be a bridge between those that are doing really well and those who may need a little bit of guidance or insight or just some encouragement and hope. So every Thursday at 11:30, we're coming to you just to share some different things. We talked a little bit about trust and loyalty earlier within your teams. And today, as you know, we have a faith-based focus. For the majority of our discussion today, we are actually going to ask you to mute your microphones so that we can reduce any of the background noise or interference, just in case your coworkers want to bark or scratch or do anything else. And that will just kind of help us isolate the sound for our panelists and our speakers today. Essentially, our heart is to be able to support leaders like you in a time like this. So our goal is to deliver some insights, to support you, and to encourage you during this time. So thank you again for joining us for our growth series. Mike, today, who do we have?
Today, we have a special treat. I'm really excited. Because we are all about helping to prepare you for what's happening now, what happens next. And one place where that is so important, has been important, is in the church and in faith-based organizations. And so we have a couple of great friends of ours, John Kenney from Quest Church, Yannik from Chosen. These two men have, and I don't want to overstate, but have reinvented in many ways how church can be done, what church is. And I'll let them tell you a bit about that today. But they're doing some remarkable things. And we're just so humbled and happy that they agreed to join us today for a little while. We're going to be here for about an hour. We're going to start, talking to John and to Yannik in a bit. What I need to say is that they focus on, I believe, their view is around the church, the kind of the big C church versus the building. And I think you're going to see a little bit of that today. Another special guest that we'll have is Anthony Carlie.
Yes.
Anthony Carlie, a minister in his own right, photographer, TV producer, documentary director, and he's going to give us some insights around some of the things that really can help to get the message out in an effective way. So, good morning, John, Yannik, how y'all doing?
Good morning, bro. Honored to be on with you. Excited about the change that we know is coming to our community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to be with you guys as well. John Kenney coming to you from my office here. Just humbled to be able to share today. I love Mike and Wendy and their ministry, their business, all that they do, especially to just, man, you guys just jump right in and are trying to help people in our community. And that says a lot about you guys in so many ways. So thank you for the opportunity to just be here and share with others today. That's collaboration is what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. It's sometimes when you don't know what to do, you do the only thing that you know. And so hopefully something that's happened over the last few weeks or that will happen is helpful to somebody. So thank you for that. And I saw Anthony pop in.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Just say hello, Anthony, real quick.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Anthony Carlie from Mount Olive Baptist Church. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, and thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to get right into it because we want to make the most of the time that we have with you today. We're going to start with Mike and I just asking several questions. I guess if you wanted to call this the Mike and Wendy TV show, then welcome.
Sponsored by anybody who wants to sponsor.
And then we're going to open it up for Q&A because we really want the value of the people that we have today, we want it to be shared with all of you and encourage each of you to share as well. We'll also be monitoring the chat. So if you see at the bottom of your screen in the center or somewhere near there, it'll say chat. You feel free to drop any questions that you have or put any comments in that chat section. We'll be checking that throughout the time that we're with you today. So before we get into the real business of it, and we want to give each of the gentlemen that agreed to join us today an opportunity to just introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves. So John, we're going to start with you.
Thank you very much. My name is John Kenney. I'm the senior pastor of Quest Church in Grovetown, Georgia. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Shauna, 25 years. We have 4 kids. I have a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old, and then 2 13-year-olds that the Lord blessed me with. We had twins. Told my wife at the time we were birthing a church, and she said, no, we got to have some more kids too. So I had 2 at once. So got 4 kids and just love them, love my family. The church has been around, again, about 15 years. I'm an Army brat. So my dad was stationed here 3 times. That's how I ended up in Augusta, actually. Lived in Germany, Korea, a bunch of different states, and just felt led to start a church here in this area. I'd been here already, but my church was birthed out of another church here in this area.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm like, oh, we're talking, we're looking. Thank you so much. We are blessed to have been able to meet you and attend your church, meet your beautiful family. And so we're just thankful that you've been here this whole time and in the way that you give back to the community. So thank you. Yannik, we'll come to you next.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks again, y'all, for the opportunity. Y'all are killing the game out here, man. So always a pleasure.
Yes,
I know y'all try to be humble, but y'all are killing it. So thanks again for the opportunity to do this. Been in Augusta for about 9 years now by way of Atlanta. I'm a pastor of a church called Chosen. We partner with Quest here in Grovetown and been married for about 15 years. I have 2 children. My son, Jalen, is 18. Shout out to J-Man. He just committed to Spalding on a baseball/education scholarship. So super proud of him. I have a daughter named Elise, who is 10, who has her daddy's heart for sure. A beautiful wife named Linda, who I love and adore. Started Chosen about 2.5 years ago. I really saw a need for a contemporary church that would reach young people in our city. Primarily, I saw a need for a contemporary church that was led by a Black pastor. There's no contemporary church in the CSRA that's led by a Black pastor, and a lot of our youth and young adults were disconnecting from ministries because they didn't feel what was happening in the traditional Black churches, and then they would go to other contemporary churches, but they felt that their issues weren't being spoke to by pastors that didn't have their background and didn't have their struggles. And so a lot of youth were just left without a place to call home. And God laid on me the idea of Chosen, and we started about 2.5 years ago with an idea of doing church different, partnering with other pastors so that we could be more multicultural and multi-generational and multi-social, rich people, poor people, etc. And so been at this for about 2.5 years, met a lot of amazing people on this journey. And as I said initially, I'm super excited about what I believe God is doing during this season to promote a whole new perspective on life. And so I'm just trying to play my part in what God is doing in the city. It's been good.
Yeah. And you're playing your part. In fact, you're really kind of extending off of what you just said and pivoting into why we're even talking today. I wonder if you and John could talk about the partnership that you have and how that's prepared you for something like what COVID-19 has brought to our society.
Wow. Well, I'll start us off, John. We initially met in a Starbucks. Where else? John, oh man, John was studying, and John didn't know it, but I had been to his service once, and I was encouraged to go by another mutual friend that John and I have, Mike. And so Mike told me to go check John out. So I snuck in the back and heard a powerful message from my brother and said, you know what? I want to know a little bit more about this guy. And so I happened to be in Starbucks early one morning, and I saw him over there and just went over to introduce myself. And, you know, it was crazy just how the connection was. I can honestly say this, that there are very few people that I have met that had such similar desires to impact the kingdom without worrying about who would get the credit. I have very rarely ran into a brother in a church that was so opening, embracing, and I just wanted to know more. I was intrigued by his ministry perspective and his humble heart. And we just started kicking it. I mean, just really with no agenda, just kind of how my relationship grew, Perry, just hanging out, talking, and loving on each other. And out of that was birthed a ministry partnership that I truly believe is going to change the way people do church. So, John, you want to pick up from there?
I love that. Yeah, I think same thing. You know, Yannik and I always say that this can work, this partnership, if we work, he and I feel like I have learned so much from him. My eyes have been open. Things I did not even realize about myself and my understanding of culture that is different than mine. He's right. We just hit it off. And, you know, I think that matters. And we didn't have a plan. We just started talking and doing things. Yannik and I joke all the time because we're so similar in some ways and an opposite in others, man. I told you just yesterday, he is the gas pedal. And if you know Yannik at all, he is a gas pedal, man. He wants to go. What's that thing you always say? Go and
yeah, go and then God will show. Yeah.
I always tell Yannik, I've been spiritually gifted with something called being the brake pedal. Let's slow this down. you know, when you bring those, you got to get different kinds of people around you, and I think the Lord uses that and grows His kingdom that way. And one of the things you asked, Mike, that just you sent us a few questions ahead of time to think on it. This one was so good that you just asked me, because as it relates to what's going on with COVID, man, we've had to, all of us, any pastor on here, anybody doing any business, it doesn't matter. You have had to reinvent yourself like that. Like if you're sitting around waiting for things to get back to normal, you ain't gonna make it. Like it's gonna be a new normal. It's gonna look different. But the thing about it is, Yannik and I have had such real conversations and have had to work really hard. And I call it the last 10%. Give the last 10% in conversations. Like, don't hold. And what it's done is it's given me, and I think Yannik, the ability to work through difficult things. Right?
Oh, Lord Jesus.
So to troubleshoot, and Yannik always uses that word, to troubleshoot, because we've been troubleshooting this partnership for a year. Yannik, we're coming up on a year, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
been partnering, working together. We're actually, it was longer than that, but for a year, Yannik and I have been on the same campus here in Grovetown. And working through the issues that we've had to work through has prepared me, and I didn't even realize it, for what was going to happen with this pandemic, where I have to be able to work through issues and navigate and try different things, and, you know, not be too afraid of that. And like Yannik says, go ahead and put the pedal to the metal. Sometimes you got to go. Like, this is not a time to just, I mean, we need to take calculated risks, but you got to take some risks, man. You really,
Yeah.
it's just been.
John, I want to pick up on what you just said to make sure that the viewers didn't miss it. The first thing that we had to do is we had to discuss our goals. And when I say our goals, the thing that makes John and I get along so well is our goals are never personal. So the first thing that we had to do was sit down and figure out what was going to be best for the people that we were leading. And so what I would suggest for our leaders, pastors, et cetera, who are listening is the first thing that you have to do is you have to surround yourself with different types of people who have different perspectives from you. The reason that's important is because you're going to miss something. So John being the brake and me being the gas, we sat down and said, okay, John is like, well, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen. And then I say, well, we need to make sure that this does happen. and in those discussions, it's all been about what's going to be best for the people that we are leading. How can we protect them during this crisis, but also prepare them for what's coming next? Because John and I both believe that when you're ready, you don't have to get ready. And because both of us were, you know, somewhat prepared for what was happening, we were able to have a very productive discussion, because it wasn't, yeah, we had to scramble some, don't get it twisted, but because we were already somewhat prepared with our teams, with our media, with everything that we were already doing, we were positioned to have a very productive discussion on how we can leverage COVID for the community and the kingdom. So I don't want to, get off on a tangent, but we see this as a real opportunity to grow the kingdom, because churches are stepping up in a very, very big way. Shout out to Revivify. Neil, I know you're on here and you're part of our bigger group of people that have stepped up to serve and love on families and the communities during this crisis, which is a big deal because it's changing the brand of the church. And those people that are out there in the communities, their churches that are out there in their communities in such a unique way right now, are going to see growth come from COVID. So yeah, COVID was a crisis, but it was also, to no pun intended, a catalyst. So John and I, when we sat down, we figured out, okay, how can we protect our people? Yeah, we don't need to be meeting right now. Yeah, I know faith over fear, but God gave us wisdom, right? And so then we said, okay, now that we've decided how we're going to protect our people, we also need to be discussing how we're going to leverage this so that we can grow and keep the momentum that we had before COVID came.
So I want to just for a second, because I want to grab something, because you all have said a lot, but I want to make sure that we highlight this idea of preparation. But also this idea of vision, having goals and vision before going in. We've been talking to a lot of leaders here recently about, what's your first response and how do you establish what your direction is? It's important that you lean on the vision you have. And if you don't have a well-established vision, then it's probably time to go to the drawing board now and to really craft that. Because some people have vision, they've laid it out, but it's really not clear. And so, because if you have a solid vision and you know where you would like to go, the way you get there can change. But what you do when you respond to crisis or being thrown off track has everything to do with the direction you're going and what you want to do. A lot of times, as it pertains to the church, I was looking at some reports over the last few years, and some people were very resistant to do things like go on social media, go online giving, all those things. Even some articles written against it, and look where we are now, because a lot of people thought, well, it will take away from the sanctity of the process. You can't find God online. Well, God is everywhere, right? So I just think that idea of having a plan in place and being ready to move in some way is very important, even if you don't know exactly where you're going to be having to move.
Yes. And so it's a little ambitious of us to have 2, 3, 4 or more pastors on today, because of course we know that your gift and your gifting is talking. And so we're going to do our best to kind of keep you guys, with us and kind of gently guide you through, but we want to hear from you. So we don't want to send 2 messages. So just in case you haven't figured out, Mike's the gas and I'm the brakes. And so we appreciate you guys sharing your vision about how you got to where you were, but to your point, some really good points about being prepared and having a plan ahead of a crisis. And so I think, what questions are we going to get to next? Where you want to go?
Well, I want to talk about their virtual presence before COVID even happened. How were you reaching people outside of the walls before COVID even happened? And really, I'm gonna put that to John and to Yannik. I'm gonna come to Anthony Carlie here in a bit. But I'm going to kind of give him his own piece of time. So I want Anthony to really kind of take in what they're saying, because what we ask him is really the context that we build is going to be very important. So, but just talk about your virtual presence before COVID-19.
Want me to start that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Kind of the same, since we're both on the same campus, perhaps. But I walked around our campus yesterday. I was spending some time in prayer, and I thought, these buildings, they're only about 3-4 years old. They're not doing anything right now. They're sitting here empty, right? Except for working in the office a little bit, live streaming, filming stuff. And so I think that most churches, probably before COVID, and it's certainly true of us, I would say that we were a physical, or you could use the word analog campus with a small digital footprint or presence, right? Now we are a digital campus with actually currently really no physical or analog presence, except for a little bit of working hours in the office. And we're currently not open at all. So the only folks who are here would be office staff occasionally, and we come in to film. We're going to be filming later today, Yannik and I, on messages for the weekend and things like that. So before COVID, we would set up a camera at the back and we would just stream our services. And that was, we had some social media presence and things like that. But now the necessity of what's happened has completely flipped that around. A lot of the articles and stuff we were talking about the new normal is going to be a digital church with a physical presence rather than the other way around. And for us, it's really turned into this idea of how we can be a digital campus even into the future, because the scalability and the ability to reach people outside of what you do physically is huge. There are people I've realized that will never, I should have known this before, never set foot on this campus, but I can still reach them through digital presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got anything to add to that, Yannik?
Yeah, John hit the nail on the head. We always had a digital presence. I mean, it baffled me the amount of churches that were saying, I'm going to get my Facebook page up. I mean, that just is unacceptable in my mind, because you have to move with the times. Now, you don't let the times move you, but I believe that there's nothing evil about the internet. And what I've found is that oftentimes when people push back on certain things, it's only because their individual comfortability, and then they try to find theology to support how they feel. Nothing's wrong with money. It's how we use it that determines whether it's good or bad. There's nothing wrong with the internet, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. It's how we use it that makes it good or bad. And so, as John said, a lot of churches are going to have to change how they do things if they really want to be effective. And I believe that's a good thing, because overhead in churches are high. One of the reasons Chosen wanted to partner with other ministries is because you can get further faster. Like, yeah, your name may not be on the building, but if you can keep most of your money and use that for ministry as opposed to overhead, I think God is pleased. So my prayer for the church during this season is that not only do we leverage this opportunity to get the gospel out in very unique forms and fashions, but also that we'll be pushed out our comfort zone and that we'll figure out how we can use more of what God has given us.
Pleasure. And as you
I think somebody needs to go on mute. But so just trying to figure out how we can better use our resources for the impact of the kingdom.
Yeah, so I want to take this opportunity. Thank you both. Again, you both mentioned that you lead contemporary churches, and that really requires that you continually keep your finger on the pulse of what's new, what's now, and what's next. And so thank you for sharing how you've been able to really kind of pivot in light of the current situation, and what that has looked like for you in terms of a virtual presence. At this point, I'd like to ask everyone that's in attendance with us today to drop their comments in the chat room that relate to your experience with virtual worship. So it could be anything from I was in the parking lot and flashed my lights at my church, or I really enjoy having all of the different platforms, the primary message, Sunday school, or whatever it is that you attend. But I would like to invite you to drop your comments about your experiences and what that has meant for you in the chat at this time. Thanks. And then we'll come back with our next question to Yannik.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
So, but I just wanted to say, I watched John one day. He did a live in his church, in his building. He was walking actually through all the buildings, and he was like, he went through every single building, and he came out, and his point was, and I won't break the whole thing down to you. You can watch it. You can find it out there. But all these buildings, and he was like, this is not the church. The church is something much bigger. And it's funny how people have, will often take God, this spiritual being, and try to boil him down to physical things. I remember having my Bible on my phone back at Walter Reed, years ago, 10 years ago. And the guy was like, I don't know about that. I like to feel the pages. I'm like, well, the word is not about the pages. It's just printed on the pages, right? And so it's very interesting how those physical things make us feel safe, but that's not where the safety really is. Anyway, all right. So go ahead with the next question.
Yeah. So you talked about your unique partnership, and you talked about your virtual presence before COVID-19, and you gave us a little bit of an idea of how you've been transitioning. But can you tell us a little bit more about what that full virtual platform is and how difficult it was to make that transition?
Yeah, sure. So but before COVID, we were streaming services on Instagram, Facebook, and that was going pretty well. We've got a decent social media presence. So does Quest. When we got hit with COVID, I want to shout out Wes and Chris from Quest Social. They're not social, but their media team, and Mark Jenkins from our media team, who really just stepped up in such a big way, them and all their volunteers, to help us navigate this situation. And it goes back to the point that we initially made, surrounding yourself with people who have different skill sets, and skill sets that speak to the greatest need in your current moments. So because we're such contemporary churches, John and I both made it a point to find people with skill sets that would help us to get the word out in contemporary fashions. And so it goes back to what we were saying, making sure that you're always surrounding yourself with people who have gifts and talents that you don't have. Because if you don't, you will get stuck in a traditional and restrained mindset. One of the scriptures that we used when we started Chosen a couple of years ago was, you can't put new wine in an old wineskin. And when Jesus said that, a little context, he was actually talking to the Pharisees who didn't really understand who he was. And the reason they didn't understand who Jesus was because he was coming in a way that they weren't used to. And so what that told us was that we can't put a new generation in an old church. We've got to be able to come in a different way if we want to, attract something new. And we can't be afraid of something new like the Pharisees were afraid of Jesus. We have to embrace these different moments and these different trends and leverage that for the impact of the kingdom. So we were ready, so we didn't have to really do too much different, make some enhancements and adjustments, and continue to push out the word. John, what you think about that?
I agree. I think the collaboration piece made it probably easier for us than it might be with some others. And I'm sensitive to the fact that for some folks, this was really hard and is still really hard. And that's where I think collaboration and offering yourself to other people. If your church has a pretty good virtual platform and ability to film and things like that, we ought to be reaching out to the churches around us who could utilize that. And it's a way to create some collaboration, networking together to be able to help one another in those environments. So, we're open to that. Please feel free to reach out to us here at Quest and Chosen. I've reached out to folks on that to make that available. As you talk about the full virtual platform, I think Wendy said, for us, what happened was we knew we needed to have the staples, if you will. And what happened was right at the beginning, this has changed constantly. I would say every 2 or 3 days over the past 2 months, my mindset has changed. And so it keeps changing. It keeps changing. Like at first it was, we got to enhance online worship a little for just a couple weeks till we get back to normal. It's become even phasing back in, and we're probably going to get to this later, is going to be different than we thought. You're not going to go from how we are now to just everybody worshiping together, just how you were before, with handshakes and all that kind of. It's going to be a little different. It really is.
No more touch your neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. well, listen, that's funny. So it's like, all the huggers are losing it right now. And I know we'll figure this thing out, right? Everybody put on suits or something. But I want to know let's talk about relationships though, John. Without getting people in the same building, it's got to be a profound challenge to actually build and cultivate relationships. How are you all trying to overcome that challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. And what we've learned, at first, we just got excited when we had, we got 3 times as many views as we did when we were on campus, right? Well, we've moved from the idea of viewership to engagement. We're not really measuring how many views we have. We're measuring what the engagement looks like and connection looks like. And that's become new for us. And here's an example of what we're trying to do to cultivate relationship, like you said, Mike. Right now we have the service, right? And we moderate the service with staff. They're on there trying to talk. We've talked about, let's not just make comments, let's ask questions. Like the first question could be, where are you tuning in from? Because our reach has gotten, a lot bigger than just here. But we're adding next weekend, not this weekend. We're going to mock it up this weekend and try it ourselves as a staff, but we're going to add a virtual lobby to what we're doing at the end of the service. Because the lobby is a big deal at our church. If you know our church at all, you come in, you get coffee, you hang out, you talk. People, I can't get them out the door to get the next service in or whatever. And so we're going to kind of do grab your coffee, you're sitting at your house, and now let's talk. And, on Zoom, there's incredible, and there's other platforms too. You can create breakout rooms and things like this. So one of the things we do in our services is offer prayer for people. How do you do that? Well, we're going to offer a prayer room in our virtual lobby. We're going to have, if you're a guest, meet our hospitality director in another room. It's going to be some work, but trying to engage and connect with people in relationships. And it's not just the ones we already have. We need to be connecting with the people who are in our church, but we still want to connect with people outside our church, and do that. We do something called Starting Point once a month for guests. And we were like, why do we stop that just because we're not on campus? So we did a Starting Point last week, and we had one person attend, one. But you know what? They are not a part of our church, and it was an incredible experience for them and our hospitality director, and they got to know each other. And now they're a part of our church, and they have never even been on our campus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are just a couple ideas.
Yeah, that's strong. Thank you. And I'm gonna, and I'll let one of you choose who answers this question, because I was looking at a couple of articles, and there's a report that came out. It was the State of the Plate survey, which I think is funny. It's funny, but that was done by the National Association of Evangelicals, and the word is that about 8% of churches have grown since the COVID-19 crisis. About 27% have remained stable, and 65% are in decline financially. What do you make of those numbers?
What do you think, John?
It's hard because, I wonder what the metrics are and how they're measuring. There's certain, and I think I read that, or maybe in another article as well. I will say this about giving: we've declined some, but we've also cut budget and things like that. There's certain things we don't need. I don't need to run the ACs in every room right now, so like that. But I definitely know we've increased, and I'm sure Chosen has, in terms of reach and things like that. But I'm not so sure how many people are still attending who would have been on campus. It's hard. Just how you measure right now is really difficult. Like, I'm not even we normally count, right? But we're counting, but we're not even counting views now. It's how long do they stay on, engagement, things like that. So those numbers seem to make sense. I do believe that churches are probably growing online, but there's no way to measure whether they're growing on campus,
Yeah. Thanks, John. So this idea of reach is a great time to bring in Anthony Carlie, if we could, because well, Anthony, tell them a little bit about what you do and who you are, because I think we want to hear from you today, for sure.
Well, Anthony Carlie, retired Army, married to my high school sweetheart, almost 30 years now. We have 4 sons. We have, my oldest son is in the Navy, coming up on 6 years. My second, he's a reserve chaplain in the Army Reserves. And my third son is he's actually the youth pastor at In Focus. And my fourth son is an upcoming senior. So we've been here for the past almost 8 years now. And we're now at Mount Olive Baptist Church. My background is actually television production / photography. And, Mike and I, we actually had a conversation 2 years ago. I threw an idea at him about doing my own video sermons and, just spread them out on Facebook, and never really had the time to do it. Always busy doing other projects. But all of this virus and everything, that just gave me the time to make all those ideas actually come into fruition. And so that's what I've been doing over the past, I would say, month or so, is just producing my own 5-minute, 7-minute sermonettes, I would say. Trying to take it up a notch, make it more professional, having the audio, the correct audio, having the correct lighting, what we call 3-point lighting, just making it look like it's something that you would actually see on television. And I've gotten a lot of nice reviews, and I think is something that I think it needs to sort of spread, not just the professional part of it, but being able to bring about a message in a concrete, concise way that is very, very engaging to the audience. And what I mean by engaging is, being able to have constant eye contact. I've seen a lot of, and I know people are limited, churches are limited with, the equipment and what have you. But once you see how inexpensive the tools and the technology is, and just be trained a little bit, it's not that difficult, it's not that expensive, but to use these tools in a way that can just really amp up your message and make it more engaging, I think that's very, very powerful.
That's good. Thank you, Anthony, for being here. Can you share with us, just in your experience, some common missteps that you've seen that people have been making as they attempt to establish an online presence? What have you seen as some common missteps?
Well, from a technical point of view, the camera, for one, you want to have a camera that can somewhat zoom in, and your cell phone is able to do this. Any still camera that has video capabilities is able to do this, but you want to be able to limit the view that the camera has, that the audience is seeing. Right now, I have a wide view with the camera that you see me in. That is entirely too wide, unless you have a background that is very, very pleasing. This background that I have, I chose this purposely, but this background that I have, there's so much going on in the background that your eyes will easily just wander. So you want to eliminate that. And that's one thing that I see a lot of pastors and ministers are doing. They have a camera that has a very wide background, and it takes the focus off of the person who's speaking. The other thing is, when you're bringing your message, you want to have an idea, a strong idea of what you want to say. You don't want to be lingering off to one subject to another subject. What that does is that causes, and this happens even in the pulpit, in the physical church, but just to have a concise idea of what your message is going to be. Let's see here. I think I don't know if I mentioned this, but being able to keep your eyes focused directly to your audience, that makes the audience feel engaged. That makes whatever you're saying to that particular person, to your audience, it makes that individual person feel like you're talking directly to him or her. And that's very powerful. What else do I have now? Audio. When you're speaking, even if you're using a cell phone, for instance, the audio that's coming through that cell phone, when it comes through all of the channels that it has to go through and then come to your audience, it's coming through very harsh-like. So what I would suggest is for people to invest in a very inexpensive lavalier mic. You can get a very good lavalier mic for $200, if not less. And you can actually connect that lavalier mic into your cell phone, and voila, you have perfectly good audio coming through. So those are some of the things that I think can enhance a person's
Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. And if you could, I want you to drop your information into the chat. And by the way, we can see you. We can't see you right now. I'm not sure if that's intentional. But if you could drop your information into the chat, because you and I talked a lot about things that people can do, perhaps for not as much money as they might think. And so he's a wealth of information really on getting the pieces that are essential to get started, or to really kind of take your appearance up to the next level. So, so we'd appreciate it if you just drop your information there so folks can find it. And that really goes for everybody here, John, Yannik, all of you. If you just drop that information there, obviously we can connect you with them, but people like to go with like one step. So whatever is the best way to contact you all, we'd appreciate if y'all like share that.
Yes, and thank you for the comments that you've dropped in the chat already. Barry, Ron, Jen, and Rick. Thank you, because that's helpful to everyone that's here. And we still invite the rest of you, if you'd like to share about your experience attending church or worship services virtually. I can share with you that for us, Sundays have become kind of a round robin. We've attended probably on average about 3 church services every Sunday.
About 4.
3 or 4. And just to get a little bit, and we've seen such a varied approach to that interaction, everything from what Anthony described as the cell phone with the, very close proximity to people in their fellowship halls or sanctuaries with, a virtual choir. And so it's just been a very interesting experience, but has allowed us to do something we couldn't do before, which is attend several services at the same time in the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And so before we leave today, we want to make sure that we ask some key questions. The question that we have, we want to jump back to Yannik and John. The question that I have for you is, can you share 2 essential lessons that you've learned in the past month?
And I'm gonna up the ante a little bit. We're in the lightning round, so y'all get one, like your top one.
Oh, one essential lesson you've learned in the past month.
Mine's easy. I would say the word pivot has become huge for me. My son loves basketball, and if I taught him, if I blocked a shot, you're gonna have to pivot and take a new shot. The shot's been blocked as it relates to gathering in public worship right now. You got to pivot, and you got to take the shot if you want to win. I mean, we've got to pivot, and so constant pivoting is what I've been doing, and what my team. I'm so proud of my team, because they're the ones that have been doing that as well. So pivot, that's my lesson this month.
So thanks, John. Yannik.
Focus is mine. I think sometimes in my past, I've been too caught up in how and not in what. And so what God has been helping me with is just focus on what I called you to do. And what I know he's called us to do is to share his gospel. It doesn't have to happen in the sanctuary, but it does need to happen. So just focusing on what he's saying to do and making sure that's getting accomplished, and being flexible enough to get it done regardless of how it's happening. So just focus is huge for me.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Yannik. Anthony. All right, so my budget's tight, money's low. I need 3 pieces of equipment to get started. Mm-hmm. What am I going to buy tomorrow?
Number 1 would be a teleprompter. You can actually get a very decent teleprompter for $400. And that will allow you to have that engagement that I was talking about earlier, that eye contact with the audience. So the number 1 thing I would tell you to get is a teleprompter. Mm-hmm. Most churches will probably already have lights. So if you have lights, that would be great. If not, the second thing I would tell you to get are, at least what we call 3-point lighting. And the reason why you need 3 points is because 2 lights are going to be behind, coming in at a 45-degree angle. 1 light's going to be in front. The 2 lights that's coming from behind, it does something important called separation. It causes the subject to be separated from your background. It's just a very, very high-end professional look that you want to have in your video production. The next thing I would tell you to get is I think I talked to you about the wireless microphone. So you would already have your camera, which you can use your cell phone camera. The next thing would be the teleprompter, the lights, and the microphone.
Awesome. Yeah, excellent. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. So this is like the lightning round part 2, real fast. Actually, let's see, John or Yannik, eventually we're going to go back into these buildings. What are you considering right now in terms of preparing to do that?
I mean, I know we're discussing phases. As John said before, we can't go back to the way things were immediately. And even though there's a desire to do that, we have to operate in wisdom. And so, John, I don't know how much you want to give on that right now, as we haven't come to any specific conclusions. But
I think the best thing churches could do, in my opinion, is take all the stuff that's out there. You know, we've got, for us in Georgia, and you may not be watching from Georgia, but we got our governor's stuff. We've got the national stuff. You might have some denominational stuff. You got all these layers of kind of rules and regulations. And when you read them, sometimes they don't even seem to match, right? And like, for one, it might say, hey, if you're an individual, avoid groups of 10 or more. And then they'll say, but you don't worship in that. Well, you know, how do we do that, right? So we have to deal with those things. But I think what you want to do is be planning, working on your plan right now. And I don't think you have to put a date on it. I think it needs to be what the phases look like. For us, we're looking at 2 phases. Right now, this is a phase, but let's say we start to come back into public worship. We have, and I'll just keep it this simple, we have a very strict phase, which is going to involve a lot of things that are, you know, in one entrance, out another, maybe even dismissing according to sections, you know, not opening the coffee bar, stuff like that. And then we have a limited phase, which we start to let some things off. And then finally, and I don't know when this will be, but it's the back to the new normal phase, which will still be a new normal. So at least knowing what your phases are. I think if you're thinking we're going from nothing, or as we are now, back to normal, then that can happen. But I would say to you, it's a long time from now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So thank you, guys. Each of you have shared something, I think, of so much value, and we just appreciate so much your time today. So thank you, John, Yannik, and Anthony, for your insights and for just volunteering your time. So we've reached the last 5 minutes of our discussion today, and we invite everyone that is attending to drop any remaining questions that you have in the chat. So that we can go ahead and look at those, read those out, and get to everyone. We appreciate you dropping in there about your recent experience with virtual worship. We also thank our panelists for dropping in their contact information. But we would like to invite you to go ahead and drop any questions that you have in the chat so we can get to those before we close out today.
Yeah, and as we prepare to close, this past hour is gone like way too fast. If you all don't mind, I think we need to have you back on at some point in the coming weeks, because there's a lot more I think we need to unpack around not just only operating in a virtual environment, but also leading in a virtual environment, which really kind of falls into our wheelhouse and what we specialize in. And because we want to make sure that we're always having conversations that equip leaders to do things that are most difficult. I would not want to be a pastor right now, right? It has got to be profoundly difficult, some of the decisions you have to make, but we need to be talking about those things and bringing people together to share ideas and to encourage each other.
Yes.
While we wait on questions to come in, let me give everybody this resource really quick, Wendy.
Okay.
It's Restream. So if you go to Google, you put in Restream. That is a tool that we are using that has really helped us to stream to multi-platforms at once. It's a very, very inexpensive tool that'll help you greatly increase your digital outreach. So I want to make sure ministries know about that.
Thank you, Yannik. So the first question we have is, are you giving your congregations tools to invite others via social media to your virtual services?
Oh yeah. Our church, we launched Chosen with about $3,500. So social media has always been a very, very big part of our promotion strategy. So we have a very capable social media manager. Her name is Danny Parks, who makes sure that every week we have pictures, we've got video that's being shared. We always copy our leaders in on whatever message that is being taught and ask them to share it. The YouTube channel, and making sure that we're reminding people to share the message on Facebook. All of those things are extremely critical, and they happen throughout the week, because the point is to get people excited about what's going to happen virtually. So keeping that engagement throughout the week is critical for online views on the weekend.
Okay, good. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Danny has been active in the chat on your behalf and gave us all of your contact information. So thanks, Danny. She did ask Anthony to give the name of the microphone, and he did drop in his contact information and the answers to that in the chat. And so Rick Berry had a question. He said, from engagement thoughts, extend curriculum to the home, something to do, study, return, and report from week to week. They have success with that. So really just kind of sharing something that they've done. We've also had the benefit of seeing, I think it was the children's church or the children's ministry at Quest.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, doing exactly that. You want to talk about that real quick?
Well,
There are no more questions.
It was just a different, it was a different segment. It wasn't, the preaching piece. It was actually a piece specifically designed for kids, and it was like really engaging and good. I thought, wow, we could put all the kids in the back room, turn that bad boy on, and go eat some.
Yeah, and just that resource, if needed, is through the Orange Network, Orange Curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually running a conference right now virtually, because it was supposed to be in person, but they're doing it virtually. But yeah, what we're doing is comboing the faces of our next gen team with those videos that they're
Yeah.
Man, it's great stuff.
Yeah, very, very well done, I
Yes,
thought. So
yes. Well, thank you again. Oh, sorry. Thank you again. That's our time for today. Just want to remind you that you can actually save the chat. If you go to that chat box in that upper right-hand corner, there are 3 dots. You click on that and it'll have save chat. You can save chat, and then you'll have all of the notes and contact information from today's discussion. So thank you again. Thank you everyone who signed up. Join us every Thursday at 11:30. We'll have different leaders, different topics, different things that we'll be talking about, just to be able to support, connect, and help our community grow at this time. What's your final word, Mike?
My final word is unity. Thank you all, right, for coming together and showing us ways that we can continue to do that, because, Catalyst, we are a business, right? We're a privately run business, but we understand what this thing is all about. And so what drives us is our connection, right, to God, and our connection to other people, right? And so we just want to continue to facilitate that, despite walls and despite lines and barriers and everything. So thank y'all for helping us do that, and we'll continue to do it. So y'all take care. Thanks.
Yes. Until next week.
Keep
Have a
up the
blessed
good work.
week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.